International English Language Proficiency Development B23-VOC-225. Session 1, Welcome, this is your complete examination master script for B23-VOC-225 International English Language Proficiency Development. This subject, B23-VOC-225, is divided into 4 units. Unit 1 covers the foundations of language proficiency, what it means to be proficient in international English, the major global frameworks that define proficiency levels, and the core skills that every internationally recognized English speaker must demonstrate. Unit 2 moves into spoken English skills, how to speak with clarity, confidence, and professional competence in international contexts. Unit 3 focuses on written English skills, academic writing, professional communication, grammar, and vocabulary at an international level. Unit 4 deals with reading comprehension and listening skills, how to process complex texts and spoken English in real-world and academic settings. Session 2, Unit 1 Foundations of International English Proficiency. What is language proficiency? The very first thing you must understand and anchor deeply in your memory is what we mean when we talk about language proficiency. Let me give you the examination-ready definition right now. Language proficiency is the ability to use a language accurately, fluently, and appropriately across a range of real-world and academic contexts, encompassing the 4 core skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Say that definition in your mind again. Accurately, fluently, and appropriately, those 3 adverbs are your anchor. We can call them the 3 AFA pillars: accurate, fluent, appropriate. If you remember nothing else about proficiency, remember those 3 words. Now, international English proficiency specifically refers to the ability to use English in contexts that cross national boundaries, in academic institutions, in multinational workplaces, in diplomatic communication, in global digital environments. It is not just about speaking English. It is about using English effectively in international settings where the stakes are real and the audience is diverse. The Common European Framework of Reference (CEFR). The most important framework in international English language proficiency is the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, which we abbreviate as CEFR. This framework was developed by the Council of Europe and has become the global standard for describing, teaching, and assessing language ability. Here is your memory anchor for CEFR. Imagine a 6-story building. Each story is one level of language ability. The ground floor is the basement, where someone who has almost no English lives. The top floor is the penthouse, where the most fluent, sophisticated, internationally competent English user lives. The 6 floors are named A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. A1 is called breakthrough. This is the very beginning. A person can understand and use very basic expressions and simple phrases. A 2 is called wastage. The learner can communicate in simple, routine tasks and familiar topics. B1 is called threshold. This is the independent user level. The person can handle most travel situations, describe experiences and events, and express opinions. B2 is called vantage. The person can interact with native speakers with fluency and spontaneity. They can produce clear, detailed text on a wide range of subjects. C1 is called effective operational proficiency. The person can express ideas fluently and spontaneously without much searching for words, and can use language flexibly for social, academic, and professional purposes. C2 is called mastery. This is the highest level. The person can understand virtually everything heard or read, and can express themselves spontaneously with high precision. Your memory trigger for the 6 CEFR levels is the sentence, "Big windows bring clarity, ventilation, and magnificent air." The first letters BWBCVM stand for breakthrough, wastage, basic, clarity. No, let me give you a better one. Use this, all astronauts begin beautiful cosmic careers. AABBCCA1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. Say it once. All astronauts begin beautiful cosmic careers. Lock it in. Why CEFR matters for international English. The CEFR is important because it gives employers, universities, and governments a shared language to talk about English ability. When a university in the United Kingdom asks for an IELTS score of 6.5, that corresponds roughly to B2 level. When a European employer asks for C1 proficiency, they are asking for near-native command of the language. The CEFR makes international communication about language ability precise and universal. For your examination, remember this examination point: the CEFR describes language ability through what are called can-do statements. These are practical descriptions of what a learner can do at each level, rather than what they cannot do. This positive, action-oriented approach is one of the key innovations of the CEFR framework. The 4 skills: listening, speaking, reading, writing. Every model of international English proficiency is built around 4 core language skills. These 4 skills are divided into 2 categories. The receptive skills are listening and reading. These involve receiving and processing language. The productive skills are speaking and writing. These involve creating and sending language. Here is your 5-finger recall system for the 4 skills. Hold up your hand. Your thumb is listening. Your index finger is speaking. Your middle finger is reading. Your ring finger is writing. And your little finger is the bridge interaction, which combines listening and speaking in real time. That bridge skill is what distinguishes conversational proficiency from purely academic language ability. Now let us go deeper into each skill, because your examination may ask you to describe what international proficiency looks like in each of them. Listening proficiency. International listening proficiency means the ability to understand spoken English in a wide variety of accents, speeds, and contexts. An internationally proficient listener can follow academic lectures, understand news broadcasts, participate in professional meetings, and extract key information from complex spoken discourse. The challenges of international listening include accent variation. English is spoken differently in the United Kingdom, the United States, Australia, India, Singapore, and hundreds of other contexts. An internationally proficient listener has learned to adapt to this variation rather than being confused by it. Speaking proficiency. International speaking proficiency involves 4 sub-skills. The first is fluency, the ability to speak without excessive hesitation or searching for words. The second is accuracy, the correct use of grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary. The third is coherence, organizing speech in a logical, connected way. The fourth is appropriateness, matching language to the context, audience, and purpose. Remember those 4 sub-skills of speaking with this memory anchor: FACE. F for fluency, A for accuracy, C for coherence, E for effectiveness, and effectiveness here covers appropriateness to context. Every time someone asks you about speaking proficiency, recall the word FACE and you will have all 4 components at your fingertips. Reading proficiency. International reading proficiency is the ability to extract meaning, interpret tone, evaluate argument, and synthesize information from written texts across genres: academic essays, professional reports, news articles, digital content, and literary texts. At higher CEFR levels, reading proficiency includes the ability to distinguish between fact and opinion, identify bias, and critically evaluate sources. Writing proficiency. International writing proficiency is the ability to produce clear, well-structured, purposeful text for a range of audiences and purposes. This includes academic writing, essays, reports, research summaries, as well as professional writing such as emails, proposals, and formal correspondence. At the highest levels, writing proficiency involves rhetorical skill, the ability to persuade, argue, and engage readers through sophisticated language choices. Major International English Proficiency Tests. You must know the major international English proficiency tests for your examination. These tests are the real-world instruments through which CEFR levels are measured and certified. The first and most widely recognized is the International English Language Testing System, known as IELTS. IELTS is jointly managed by the British Council, IDP Australia, and Cambridge Assessment English. It tests all 4 skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking, and produces a band score from 1 to 9. A score of 7 or above typically corresponds to C1 level. The second major test is the test of English as a foreign language, known as TOEFL. TOEFL is produced by the Educational Testing Service in the United States and is widely accepted by American and Canadian universities. It also tests all 4 skills, using an internet-based format, and produces a score from 0 to 120. The third test is the Cambridge English Qualifications, a family of examinations from Cambridge Assessment English. The most well-known are the B2 First, formerly known as the First Certificate in English, and the C1 Advanced, formerly the Cambridge Advanced English. Cambridge qualifications are widely recognized in Europe and beyond. The fourth test you should know is the Pearson Test of English Academic, known as PTE Academic. PTE is a computer-based test that uses artificial intelligence for scoring and is accepted by universities in the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and increasingly in the United States. Your memory anchor for the 4 major tests is ITCP. Think of the phrase, I test carefully, precisely. I for IELTS, T for TOEFL, C for Cambridge, P for PTE. Model Examination Answer Unit 1. Examination Question: What is the CEFR and why is it important for international English proficiency? The Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, commonly known as the CEFR, is an internationally recognized framework developed by the Council of Europe to describe, assess, and compare language ability across different contexts and countries. It is organized into 6 proficiency levels: A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2, ranging from complete beginner to complete mastery. Each level is defined through positive can-do descriptors that specify what a learner is able to accomplish with language at that stage. The CEFR is critically important for international English proficiency for several reasons. First, it provides a shared, universally understood reference point that allows universities, employers, governments, and individuals across different countries to communicate about language ability without ambiguity. Second, it covers all 4 language skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing, ensuring a holistic assessment of proficiency rather than focusing on any single skill. Third, by emphasizing what learners can do rather than what they cannot do, it provides a motivating, action-oriented basis for language education. For anyone seeking to use English in international academic, professional, or diplomatic contexts, the CEFR framework offers the clearest and most widely accepted map of the proficiency journey. That is your model answer for a long-form examination question on Unit 1. Memorize the structure, define the CEFR, describe its 6 levels, explain the can-do approach, then give 3 reasons for its importance. Session 3, Unit 2: Spoken English Skills for International Contexts. Introduction: Why spoken English is the global gateway. Pastor Philemon, let us move now into Unit 2, which is about spoken English proficiency in international contexts. This is perhaps the most practically important unit of the entire course, because spoken English is the primary medium of international communication in business, diplomacy, academia, and professional life. Before we go into the specific skills, let me plant a powerful mental image in your mind. Picture yourself standing at the center of a large, busy international airport. Around you are people from 40 different countries. Some are business people. Some are academics. Some are government officials. Some are students. The one thing every single person in that airport can use to communicate is English. In that moment, your spoken English proficiency is your passport. It is what allows you to be understood, respected, and effective. Keep that image in your mind as we study this unit. Components of international spoken English proficiency. Spoken English proficiency in international contexts is assessed across 5 major components. You already know 4 of them: face, fluency, accuracy, coherence, and effectiveness. The 5th component, added specifically for international contexts, is intelligibility. Intelligibility means being understood by a wide range of international listeners, not just native English speakers. This is a crucial concept. Research by linguists such as Jennifer Jenkins has shown that the majority of English communication in the world today takes place between non-native speakers. The traditional native speaker standard is therefore not the only or even the primary goal of international English communication. Instead, intelligibility being clearly understood across cultures and accents is the real target. Your expanded memory trigger for spoken English components is now FACEI. FACEI: fluency, accuracy, coherence, effectiveness, intelligibility. Say it, FACEI. Imagine the word face and then add an I, the I of the international listener who must understand you. That image locks the 5 components together. Pronunciation in international English. Pronunciation is one of the most examined topics in this unit. The traditional view of English pronunciation was that there is one correct accent, typically received pronunciation in the United Kingdom, or General American in the United States. This view has been fundamentally challenged by the emergence of English as a global language. Today, language scholars recognize that there are many Englishes: Indian English, Nigerian English, Singaporean English, Philippine English, and hundreds of others, each with their own phonological characteristics. The key question is not which accent is correct, but which pronunciation features are essential for international intelligibility. Research in the field of English as a lingua franca, which we call ELF, has identified a lingua franca core of pronunciation features. These are the features that most directly affect whether a speaker is understood internationally. The lingua franca core includes accurate production of most consonants, correct placement of word stress, and clear use of tonic syllables, the syllables in a phrase that carry the most emphasis. For your examination, remember this definition: the lingua franca core, identified by Jennifer Jenkins, is a set of pronunciation features identified as essential for international intelligibility among speakers of English as a lingua franca. English as a lingua franca ELF. English as a lingua franca is one of the most important theoretical concepts in this subject. Let me teach it to you through a story. Imagine a meeting room in Geneva. At the table sit a scientist from Japan, a diplomat from Brazil, a doctor from Egypt, an engineer from Germany, and a professor from India. None of them shares a native language. But they all share English. The English they use in that room is not American English or British English. It is a practical, adapted form of English that belongs to all of them equally. It is English used as a lingua franca, a common tongue for people of different linguistic backgrounds. That is exactly what ELF is. English as a lingua franca refers to the use of English as a contact language among speakers who do not share a first language, and for whom English is an additional language rather than a mother tongue. The key scholars in ELF research are Jennifer Jenkins, who focused on pronunciation, Firth and Wagner, who examined ELF interaction, and Barbara Seidel-Hofer, who led the Vienna-Oxford International Corpus of English, known as Voice, the first large-scale corpus of ELF speech. Formal and informal register in spoken English. A critical aspect of international spoken English proficiency is the ability to adjust register, that is, to change the level of formality in your language depending on the context and audience. Register operates on a spectrum from very formal, such as an academic presentation or a diplomatic speech, to very informal, such as a casual conversation with a colleague. International English users must be able to move fluidly across this spectrum. For your examination, remember 3 features that shift between formal and informal register. First, vocabulary. Formal register uses latinate or technical vocabulary, while informal register uses simpler, everyday words. For example, formal: I wish to ascertain the veracity of this information. Informal: I want to check if this is true. Second, sentence structure. Formal register uses longer, more complex sentences, while informal register uses shorter, direct sentences. Third, hedging. Formal spoken English often uses hedging language, such as it would appear that, or one might argue that, to indicate tentativeness. Informal speech is more direct. Presentations and public speaking in international contexts. One of the most heavily examined practical skills in this unit is the ability to deliver effective presentations in international English contexts. Let me give you a complete framework for this. An effective international English presentation has 5 phases. Remember these 5 phases with the word opens. OPENSO is for opening. You greet your audience, introduce yourself, state your topic, and give a brief roadmap of what you will cover. This should be done in clear, simple, international English that immediately establishes rapport. P is for purpose. You clearly state the purpose of your presentation. Are you informing, persuading, demonstrating, or proposing? A clear statement of purpose orients your audience from the beginning. E is for evidence. The main body of your presentation presents your points with clear evidence, examples, and explanations. In international English presentations, examples should be drawn from contexts that are familiar across cultures, not just from one country or culture. N is for navigation. Effective presentations use signposting language to guide the audience through transitions. Phrases such as "let me now turn to," "having established that, we can now consider," and "in the next section, I will demonstrate," are examples of signposting. S is for summary. Every effective presentation ends with a strong summary that restates the key points, delivers a clear conclusion, and often ends with a call to action or an invitation for questions. Model examination answer. Unit 2. Examination question: what is English as a lingua franca and what are its implications for international spoken English proficiency? English as a lingua franca, commonly abbreviated as ELF, refers to the use of the English language as a shared medium of communication among speakers who do not share a first language and who use English as an additional language in their interaction. The term recognizes that the majority of English communication in the contemporary world takes place not between native speakers, but among non-native speakers from diverse linguistic and cultural backgrounds. The implications of ELF for international spoken English proficiency are significant. First, ELF challenges the traditional assumption that native speaker norms of pronunciation and grammar are the appropriate standard for international English users. Research by scholars such as Jennifer Jenkins has shown that deviations from native speaker pronunciation do not necessarily impede international communication, and has identified a set of pronunciation features, the lingua franca core, that are genuinely essential for mutual intelligibility among international users. Second, ELF recognizes accommodation as a key competence, the ability of speakers to adjust their language, pronunciation, and pace to ensure that their interlocutor can follow. Third, ELF research suggests that international English proficiency should be evaluated in terms of communicative effectiveness, whether meaning is successfully conveyed and understood, rather than in terms of adherence to any single national standard. For learners of international English, the practical implication is that developing clear, intelligible, contextually appropriate spoken English is more important than attempting to imitate a particular native speaker accent. Session 4, Unit 3, Written English Skills for International Contexts. Introduction, The Power of Written International English. Welcome to Unit 3, Pastor Philemon. This unit is about written English, and I want you to feel the weight of what that means. In the modern world, the written word travels farther and lasts longer than the spoken word. A professional email you send today may be read tomorrow by someone in Tokyo, Sydney, or Lagos. A report you write may be reviewed in Brussels or Washington. Written international English is the language of global influence. This unit covers three major areas: academic writing, professional writing, and grammar and vocabulary at an international level. Let us go through all three systematically. Academic writing in international English. Academic writing in English has distinctive conventions that are followed in universities and research institutions around the world. Let me introduce these conventions using the acronym PACED. PACEDP stands for purpose-driven. Academic writing always has a clear, stated purpose: to argue, to analyze, to describe, to compare, to evaluate. Every paragraph in an academic text should serve that purpose directly. A stands for analytical. Academic writing does not simply describe or narrate, it analyzes, examines causes and effects, evaluates evidence, and reaches reasoned conclusions. The analytical dimension is what separates academic writing from journalism or storytelling. C stands for citation-based. Academic writing in international contexts relies on properly cited evidence. Whether you use APA, MLA, or Chicago referencing style, the principle is the same: you must acknowledge the sources of your ideas and evidence. Failure to do so is plagiarism, which is a serious academic offense. E stands for evidence-supported. Every claim in academic writing must be supported by evidence, data, quotation, research findings, or logical argument. Unsupported assertions, statements made without evidence, weaken academic writing significantly. D stands for discipline-specific conventions. Different academic disciplines have different writing conventions. A science report follows IMRID structure: introduction, methods, results, and discussion. A humanities essay follows a thesis, argument, evidence structure. An international English student must be aware of the conventions of their discipline. The essay structure in international academic writing. The most commonly examined writing skill in this unit is the academic essay. The standard structure of an academic essay in international English contexts follows a three-part organization: introduction, body, and conclusion. The introduction performs three functions. It provides background context for the topic. It states the thesis, the central argument or claim of the essay. And it previews the structure of the essay, giving the reader a roadmap. The body of the essay is divided into paragraphs, each of which develops one main point. Each body paragraph follows what we call the TEEL structure. T is for topic sentence, the opening sentence that states the main point of the paragraph. E is for explanation, where you explain and develop the main point. E is for evidence, where you provide evidence, quotation, or examples to support the point. L is for link, where you connect the paragraph back to the thesis or forward to the next paragraph. TEEL is your memory anchor for body paragraph structure. Topic, explain, evidence, link. Say it, TEEL. Imagine a will and each spoke of the will is one of those four elements. Without any one of them, the will wobbles. The conclusion restates the thesis in new words, summarizes the main arguments, and draws a final, synthesizing conclusion. A strong conclusion does not introduce new information, it completes the intellectual journey the essay began. Professional writing in international English. Professional writing covers all written communication in workplace contexts: emails, reports, proposals, memos, letters, and increasingly, digital communication such as messaging and collaborative platforms. Professional email writing. The professional email is one of the most important and frequently examined writing skills in this subject. A professionally written international English email must meet 5 criteria. Use the acronym CRAFT. CRAFT is for clear subject line. Your email subject line must immediately tell the reader what the email is about. Vague subject lines such as hi or follow-up are unprofessional. Clear subject lines such as request for extension of submission deadline or agenda for Tuesday's project meeting are professional. R is for respectful salutation. International professional emails use appropriate greetings depending on the relationship and context. Dear Dr. Smith or Dear Professor Johnson for formal contexts. Dear Sarah or Hello Mark for professional but less formal contexts. Never begin a professional email with hey in formal contexts. A is for action-oriented content. The body of the email must state your purpose clearly in the first or second sentence, deliver all necessary information concisely, and specify any action you are requesting from the recipient. F is for formal but friendly tone. International professional emails are neither robotic nor casual. They are warm but professional. They use polite hedging language: I would be grateful if you could, would it be possible to, I look forward to hearing from you. T is for tidy closing. Professional emails end with an appropriate closing: yours sincerely for formal contexts, kind regards or best regards for semi-formal contexts, followed by the sender's full name and professional designation. Report writing in international English. A formal report is a structured document that presents information, analysis, and recommendations on a specific topic. International English reports follow a standard structure. The structure of a formal report can be remembered with the acronym SIMPLE. S is for summary or executive summary, a brief overview of the entire report. I is for introduction, background, purpose, and scope. M is for method, how information was gathered or research was conducted. P is for presentation of findings, the main data, results, or information. L is for logical analysis, interpretation, and discussion of findings. E is for end recommendations, concrete suggestions based on the findings. Grammar and vocabulary for international English. International English writing demands a high level of grammatical accuracy combined with a varied and precise vocabulary. Let me give you the most important grammar and vocabulary concepts for your examination. Cohesion and coherence in written English. Two terms that appear frequently in examination questions about written English are cohesion and coherence. These terms are related but distinct, and many students confuse them. Cohesion refers to the grammatical and lexical connections between sentences and clauses, the visible, surface-level linking of text through devices such as pronouns, conjunctions, transitions, and lexical repetition. Coherence refers to the logical flow of ideas, whether the text makes sense, whether arguments develop logically, whether there is a unified theme and purpose running through the entire text. Your memory anchor: think of a building. Cohesion is the mortar, the physical substance that holds the bricks together. Coherence is the architectural design, the logic of how the building is laid out. You can have strong mortar but a badly designed building, or a brilliantly designed building held together with weak mortar. Excellent writing requires both discourse markers and cohesive devices. Discourse markers are words and phrases that signal the relationship between ideas. They are essential for producing cohesive and coherent international English writing. There are 5 categories of discourse markers that you must know for your examination. The first category is addition markers. These add information. Examples include furthermore, in addition, moreover, also, and besides. The second category is contrast markers. These signal an opposing or qualifying point. Examples include however, nevertheless, on the other hand, although, despite, and in contrast. The third category is cause and effect markers. These signal reasons and consequences. Examples include therefore, consequently, as a result, because of this, hence, and thus. The fourth category is exemplification markers. These introduce examples. Examples include for instance, for example, to illustrate, such as, and namely. The fifth category is summary markers. These introduce conclusions or summaries. Examples include in conclusion, to summarize, in brief, overall, and ultimately. Remember these 5 categories with the phrase ACE: addition, contrast, effects, examples, summary. ACE: practice recognizing and using all 5 categories whenever you write. Model Examination Answer Unit 3. Examination Question: Explain the importance of cohesion and coherence in international English writing and describe the devices used to achieve them. Cohesion and coherence are 2 fundamental properties of effective written English, and both are essential for international English communication. Cohesion refers to the grammatical and lexical links between sentences and across a text. A cohesive text uses pronouns to refer back to previously mentioned entities, conjunctions to link clauses, transitional expressions to signal relationships between ideas, and lexical repetition or synonymy to maintain thematic continuity. Without cohesion, a text reads as a disconnected series of isolated sentences rather than a unified piece of writing. Coherence, by contrast, refers to the logical and conceptual unity of a text, whether the ideas flow logically, whether the argument develops clearly, and whether the reader is able to follow the writer's intended meaning without confusion. A text may be technically cohesive correctly using transitions and pronouns but still fail to cohere if the underlying logic is unclear or the argument is disorganized. The devices used to achieve cohesion include reference using pronouns and demonstratives such as this, these, and it to refer to previously mentioned ideas, substitution replacing a word or phrase with a shorter substitute, ellipsis omitting words that are implied by context, and conjunction using discourse markers such as however, therefore, furthermore, and consequently to signal logical relationships. Coherence is achieved through a clear thesis that unifies the text, a logical sequence of ideas, consistent focus on the topic, and the use of topic sentences that connect each paragraph to the central argument. Together, cohesion and coherence are the hallmarks of internationally competent written English. Session 5, Unit 4 Reading and Listening Skills in International English. Introduction, the receptive skills. Welcome to the final unit of the syllabus, Pastor Philemon. Unit 4 is about the receptive skills, reading and listening. These skills are called receptive because they involve receiving and processing language that comes from an external source, rather than producing language yourself. But do not be misled by the word receptive into thinking these are passive activities. Excellent reading and listening are highly active, cognitively demanding processes. Reading comprehension in international English. Reading proficiency in international English contexts involves much more than understanding words on a page. It involves a hierarchy of comprehension skills. Let me introduce that hierarchy through the three levels of reading comprehension: literal, inferential, and critical. The first level is literal comprehension. This is the ability to understand what a text explicitly states, the surface meaning of words and sentences. A question at the literal level might ask, according to the passage, what is the main cause of climate change? The answer is directly stated in the text. The second level is inferential comprehension. This is the ability to go beyond what is stated and understand what is implied. A question at the inferential level might ask, what does the author suggest about the effectiveness of current climate policies? The answer requires the reader to interpret tone, implication, and unstated assumptions. The third level is critical comprehension. This is the ability to evaluate a text, to assess the quality of its arguments, identify its assumptions and biases, evaluate the reliability of its evidence, and form a reasoned judgment about its overall value. Critical comprehension is the level expected of internationally proficient readers at C1 and C2. Your memory anchor for the three reading levels is literal, inferential, critical. Think of the word lick without the KLIC. As you move up from L to I to C, you go deeper from the surface of the text to its depths, to its evaluation. Reading strategies for international English texts. International English proficiency tests and academic contexts require specific reading strategies. The three most important strategies are skimming, scanning, and intensive reading. Skimming is the strategy of reading quickly to get a general overview of a text. When you skim, you read titles, headings, the first sentence of each paragraph, and the conclusion. Skimming tells you what a text is about without telling you the details. Scanning is the strategy of searching a text for specific information: a date, a name, a statistic, a keyword. When you scan, your eyes move quickly across the text looking for the specific item you need, ignoring everything else. Intensive reading is careful, detailed reading with full comprehension. When you read intensively, you read every word, you process every sentence, and you build a complete understanding of the text. Intensive reading is what you do when you study an academic text or answer comprehension questions. The memory trigger for the three strategies is SSI: skim, scan, intensive. Think of the acronym SSI as standing, sitting, studying. When you are standing, you skim quick overview. When you are sitting, you scan targeted search. When you are studying, you read intensively full comprehension. SSI. Listening skills in international English. Listening in international English contexts presents unique challenges that go beyond simply understanding English words. Let me enumerate the key challenges and the skills needed to overcome them. The first challenge is accent variation. International English listeners must be able to process English spoken with a wide range of accents, not just British or American, but also Indian, Chinese, French, German, Nigerian, Brazilian, and hundreds of others. The key skill here is accent accommodation, the ability to adjust your listening expectations when you encounter an unfamiliar accent. The second challenge is speed. Native English speakers and highly proficient non-native speakers often speak at speeds that can overwhelm learners. The key strategy here is chunking, processing spoken language in meaningful units rather than word by word. When you listen in chunks, you focus on phrases and clauses rather than individual words, which is much more efficient. The third challenge is background knowledge. Academic and professional listening requires background knowledge of the topic. Without that knowledge, even perfect comprehension of individual words may not produce understanding of meaning. This is why extensive reading widely on a range of topics is essential preparation for advanced international listening. Bottom-up and top-down processing in listening. One of the most important theoretical concepts in listening comprehension is the distinction between bottom-up and top-down processing. This distinction is commonly examined in university papers. Bottom-up processing means building meaning from individual sounds upwards, from phonemes to words to phrases to sentences to meaning. It is data-driven. You start with the smallest units of language and build meaning from them. Bottom-up processing is essential when you encounter unfamiliar vocabulary or accents. Top-down processing means using prior knowledge, context, and expectations to interpret meaning. It is schema-driven. You bring your existing knowledge of the world, the topic, and the genre to the listening task and use that knowledge to predict and interpret meaning. Top-down processing is what allows experienced listeners to understand speech even when some words are missed. Effective international English listeners use both processes simultaneously and interactively. This interactive model of listening comprehension, bottom-up and top-down working together, is the basis of modern listening pedagogy. Your memory anchor, bottom-up, is building. You build from the bricks. Top-down is reading the blueprint. You use the plan to understand the structure. Expert listeners use both the bricks and the blueprint at the same time. Note-taking in academic listening contexts. Academic listening in international contexts, attending lectures, academic presentations, or professional seminars, requires the skill of note-taking. Effective note-taking in international English involves three principles. The first principle is selectivity. You cannot write down everything that is said. You must listen for key points, main arguments, and critical evidence, and record those, not every word. An internationally proficient note-taker listens for signposting language phrases like "the main point is," "I want to emphasize," "in summary," and "the evidence shows that" signal the most important information. The second principle is abbreviation. Effective note-takers develop personal shorthand systems that allow them to write quickly without missing the next point. Common abbreviations include using the plus sign for and or also, an arrow for leads to or results in, and question marks for points to investigate further. The third principle is organization. Notes should be organized in a way that allows you to review and understand them later. This means using clear headings for new topics, indentation for subpoints, and spacing for new ideas. Model Examination Answer Unit 4. Examination Question: Distinguish between bottom-up and top-down processing in listening comprehension. How does an interactive model incorporate both in the study of listening comprehension? Two contrasting models of how listeners process spoken language are commonly identified: bottom-up processing and top-down processing. Bottom-up processing is a data-driven approach in which the listener constructs meaning from the smallest units of language upwards. The listener begins by identifying individual sounds and phonemes, combines them into words, words into phrases, phrases into clauses, and clauses into sentences, ultimately building meaning from the accumulation of these linguistic units. This approach is particularly important when the listener encounters unfamiliar vocabulary, a challenging accent, or technical language, since comprehension depends on accurate decoding of the individual linguistic signals. Top-down processing, by contrast, is a schema-driven approach in which the listener uses prior knowledge, contextual clues, situational awareness, and predictions about likely content to interpret incoming language. Rather than decoding every individual sound and word, the top-down listener draws on their existing mental frameworks or schemata to make sense of what they hear. This process explains why experienced listeners can often understand speech even when individual words are missed, because their background knowledge allows them to fill in the gaps. The interactive model of listening comprehension proposes that skilled listeners do not rely exclusively on either process, but rather employ both simultaneously and interdependently. When bottom-up decoding fails due to accent, speed, or unfamiliar vocabulary, top-down knowledge fills the gap. When top-down predictions are incorrect, bottom-up decoding corrects the misunderstanding. This dynamic interplay between the two processes characterizes the listening behavior of internationally proficient English users. Session 6, Grammar for International English High Priority Examination Topics. Why grammar matters in international English. Pastor Philemon, before we move to the final revision session, we need to spend time on grammar because grammar questions frequently appear in examinations on this subject, and because a solid command of grammar is what distinguishes an average candidate from a high-scoring one. I am going to walk you through the highest priority grammar topics for international English proficiency examinations. For each one, I will give you the definition, the rule, an example, and a common mistake to avoid. Tense and aspect in academic and professional English. The most fundamental grammar system in English is tense and aspect. Tense tells us when an action occurs past, present, or future. Aspect tells us how that action unfolds in time, whether it is completed, ongoing, habitual, or in relation to another time point. In academic writing, the present simple tense is used to state established facts and general truths. For example, the research suggests that language acquisition is influenced by social context. The past simple is used to describe completed research. Jenkins conducted her landmark study in 2002. The present perfect is used to connect past research to the present. Scholars have consistently argued that ELF challenges native speaker norms. The most common tense error in international academic writing is confusion between the past simple and the present perfect. Remember this rule: use the past simple for completed, time-specific events. Use the present perfect for events with ongoing relevance to the present. Passive voice in international English writing. The passive voice is particularly important in academic and scientific writing in international English. In the passive voice, the focus is on the action or the recipient of the action, rather than on the person performing the action. The passive voice is formed with the auxiliary verb to be followed by the past participle of the main verb. For example, the experiment was conducted by researchers at Cambridge University. Or, it has been argued that language learning is fundamentally social. In academic writing, the passive voice serves three purposes. First, it emphasizes the research or result rather than the researcher. Second, it creates an objective, impersonal tone appropriate to academic discourse. Third, it allows the writer to avoid stating who performed an action when that information is unknown or unimportant. Hedging language in academic English. Hedging, the use of language to indicate tentativeness, caution, or uncertainty, is one of the most distinctive and important features of academic writing in international English. Hedging language allows writers to make claims without overstating their certainty. Common hedging devices include modal verbs such as may, might, could, would, and should. For example, this finding may suggest a relationship between. They also include adverbs such as possibly, probably, apparently, and seemingly. For example, the data appears to support this hypothesis. They include verbs such as suggest, indicate, appear, seem, and tend. For example, the results suggest that. And they include phrases such as it is possible that, there is evidence to suggest, and this might be interpreted as. Failing to use hedging language in academic writing is a mark of inexperience. Overclaiming, stating things with more certainty than the evidence supports, is a serious academic writing error. Hedging demonstrates intellectual maturity and academic sophistication. Vocabulary precision in international English. A high-scoring international English answer demonstrates vocabulary precision, the selection of the most accurate, appropriate word for each context. Vocabulary precision is the opposite of vagueness. Compare these two sentences. First, ELF is important because it helps people talk in many situations. Second, ELF is significant because it facilitates intelligible communication across linguistically diverse international contexts. The second sentence uses precise, academic vocabulary significant, facilitates, intelligible, linguistically diverse that immediately signals a sophisticated command of the subject. For your examination, make a conscious effort to upgrade your vocabulary. Replace help with facilitate, show with demonstrate, important with significant, use with employ, change with transform, talk with communicate, difficult with challenging, big with substantial.